morning we have a very special guest, the most eclectic, Glenda. Used to refer to herself as the good witch, but there is nothing witchy about this lady. I tell you. This is Glenda Stewart Langley, and she's an author and a NaNoWriMo national winner, probably many times. We'll talk to her about that. She has degrees in English and speech drama from Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and Texas A&M Kingsville, Texas. She is a teacher, a writer, a gardener, and she shares a work in progress Adobe home with my brother Chris Langley, who you met last set of 6 weeks, I believe, maybe it was in September. Along the Rio Grande River in New Mexico. So welcome, Glenda. It's so good to see you today. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Jet, and good morning, Morris. It's good to see you both. You look good.
That's your friend. Good
hey, Morris. Hi.
Okay, so Glenda, can you tell us what NaNoWriMo is? And about
NaNoWriMo is an online event that started in 1999. When a group of 21 friends decided one thing they all wanted to do was to write a novel. And it's an acronym for National Novel Writing Month. And because most of them were science and math people, they figured out that if you wrote 1,667 words a day for 30 days, at the end of 30 days, you would have a really bad 50,000 word novel. And I have 12 of them. Well, 2 of them are pretty good, I guess, but I've been doing it since 2007 when a colleague said, hey, you might like to do this. And it's been great fun. And you are a winner if you reach 50,000 words in the 30 days assigned. And it's always done in the month of November because they figured the weather was bad and people wanted to stay inside anyway. So that's the origin story. And it's been going on for 21 years. And well over 500,000 people sign up for NaNoWriMo. You sign up in the month of October. It is 100% free. I've done it every year since 2007. Except 2013 when I was undergoing treatment for breast cancer.
Yes.
And I'm all better from that now.
Yes.
So that's the origin story. Thank you. I was, as you said, I was an English and speech teacher for, gosh, I think it's been about 32 years. And the reason I was able to make time to write my 1,667 words was that I was dealing for a long time with insomnia. So I routinely wrote from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. I set up my computer in a little corner of the bedroom, and that's how I did it initially. And I retired partially in 2015 and went down to just teaching 1 speech class a semester. And when you're retired, doing that 1,667 words a day becomes a breeze. So I have a little visual aid to show you. Jet asked me about other books I'd written.
I'm Jet.
There's a little novella called Murder in Mesquite Springs. It's about 90 pages, and it took me probably 5 years to write.
Wow.
Okay. Here's another book called Dakota Dreamtime. This also took me about 5 years to write. Then comes Morning Song and Portraits of America. I don't know if you can see them.
Yes.
They each took me 30 days to write because I did them in the NaNoWriMo format. And I might even go so far as to say they're my best work. I don't know.
Excellent.
But go ahead.
Glenda, once you told me that you were doing speech to text for your writing. Have you done that since the beginning of your NaNoWriMo time?
No, when I first did it, I typed it on my computer and it did not help my carpal tunnel problem. So I would talk into my phone to a text format and then send it to myself and transfer that in onto my computer. Now, in the last couple of years, I've been using something called Dragon software, where I've got a bunch of visual aids here. I put on this little headset and I dictate it into my computer, and it does voice to text automatically. And it's made it much, much easier.
Does your work still need to be edited, or is voice to text pretty accurate?
I'm using one of the most recent versions now, and it's much more accurate. In actual fact, my typing is far more accurate, but so much slower. And so it does take a lot of editing. Yes.
Yes, very good.
But the technology is getting better and the price is going down. So the voice to text software, and there's a bunch of them out there, is a good product. I would recommend it.
Very good. Now, Glenda, you had said that you had been teaching at the university level. What
Yes.
schools were you teaching at?
Well, I began at what was then Texas A&I, where I met your brother.
Of course.
And we got married 2 years later. I taught there at grad school, and I taught part-time after I graduated. I taught nights there as well. Then the next place I taught was the University of Texas at El Paso when we lived in Las Cruces. And then I got a second. Most people who teach writing have at least 2 jobs. So I got a second job teaching at El Paso Community College. And I really liked both of those institutions. Very, very student-centric, a very exciting group of people. And then I taught at the University of New Mexico Valencia campus for a couple of years, and also like those students. I like a community college class, but the very best school, and the school I've been at the longest, is New Mexico Tech, which is a university composed of mostly scientists, engineers, and pre-med and pre-vet people. And I've taught there for the last 27 years and had the best time. They're the best students you could ask for, and the best colleagues.
Wonderful. Now, you did say that you retired. I believe you're fully retired now.
I am, as of May.
Play a role in you deciding to retire?
No, it was just serendipity. I had planned to retire. Well, okay, I retired partially in 2015, and I was waiting for someone who wanted to teach the public speaking class, because I just couldn't bear the thought of a university with no speech class. Jet, you're a public speaking person also, aren't you?
A little bit.
And well, you know how important speech is. And I taught until spring semester, and in spring semester, our chairman found another woman, a young woman, who wanted to pick up the speech class. And so she picked it up in August. And so it was just coincidence. We quit having school in person as of March of 2020, and that was our spring break. And because I am a very, very organized person, I saw it coming, and I had all of the class work done except their final speeches. And we had some technological glitches along the way, and we finally figured out that YouTube was the best platform for them to send me their speeches. And since many of them went home, it was very fun to see the students giving their speeches to their parents and their grandparents in many cases, and having those grandparents ask them questions so they could get graded on their ability to field questions. And sometimes I think the audience was a dog or a cat, so it just happened, but I saw it coming, and I was able to get everything done. So we finished, and I had many, in that class I had probably half graduating seniors. And so they wanted to finish as soon as possible to get one class out of the way. And so they were very, very cooperative, and we had a lot of fun.
Very good. I know I'm backtracking a little bit, but what did you write this past November for your NaNoWriMo competition?
What did I write? Well, I have been, obviously, if I'm a writer and an English teacher, you know that I'm an avid reader. And more of the books that I've been reading have been trilogies. So 3 books in a row compiling one long story. And a couple of years back, I wrote a story, try to keep it simple, about a woman who went back in time to study what would happen if she gave Henry VIII a really good wife. So his third wife is a woman who is a part of a long line of healers. And so she heals his sicknesses and she foils his enemies, etc. So, and she saves his daughters. So that was the first part of the first episode of the book. And then the second episode was the daughter stories. And I thought, let me have that woman, the king's wife, the queen, tell the story in her own words for the last book. And so she tells the story from her point of view and how she had to deal with all the machinations of the King Henry VIII court, and had to save her own children and her stepchildren from all of the bad people that wanted to do them harm. So that was the third book in the trilogy, and I had a lot of fun with her. She was great.
Very good, very good. I look forward to reading that sometime. Is it available on Amazon yet?
No, it's not nearly ready yet. I have another one that I did that is about, and this is a very off the wall subject, but having spent my last 27 years dealing with my church family and people like you, Jet, that are people of faith in your own life, and then dealing with the science and engineering world who are much more enamored of the evolution, of the patterns of evolution and things like that. And so I took the opportunity to write a book that the working title is Cain's Wife. And how did Cain get thrown out of Eden and then walk into a marriage with a woman whose family lived, to quote Steinbeck, east of Eden. And so I have basically written a book about a woman who is born of pure evolution and a man who was born from the hand of God. And using as much science and as much Bible text as I could find. And that's the next one I'd like to put out, if possible. So your brother is going to be the one reading it pretty soon, and he'll let me know if I should keep pursuing it.
Very good. Oh, by the way, what was the name of Cain's wife? I don't remember if it was even in scripture.
She didn't have a name in the Bible. Okay. As a matter of fact, that's another one thing that I'm dealing with, is that virtually no women except Eve have a name in the book of Genesis. And so she has a name. It's called Blue Wing, because she was born with a blue birthmark on her face, which they took to be a curse from the goddess Lilith. Lilith in the Bible takes the form of a screech owl and kills mothers and or babies at the time of birth. And her mother died when she was born. And so she has a blue birthmark on her face. And if you remember Cain, God put a mark on him. So he had a mark that identified him so that the people outside of Eden would not harm him. And so she tells the story where she says, we are both cursed of our own people. And my people gave him as a wife as cursed as he was.
Oh.
And so that's how they end up together. And that's what I mean when I'm combining Bible facts, for want of a better word, and the evolutionary record. And they have a run-in with the Neanderthals and So I'm still doing research on Neanderthals because that research is changing very quickly with what people think the Neanderthals were actually like. So that's a tricky thing. And so that's the one I would like to put out. And the working title is Cain's Wife. So her name is Blue Wing. And I think that he goes by the name Cain. I'm not sure.
I have a question. Is there a
Yes.
mythology that you drew on to design Blue Wing?
Yes, absolutely. I have been a student both in my professional career and in my private life of anthropology and
Yes.
archaeology. And so and I'm also going on, if you've heard the concept of the 4 ancestral Eves.
Yes.
There is a school of thought that believes that every human being on this planet alive today takes their mitochondria back to 4 women in sub-Saharan Africa at least 30,000 years ago. And
Right.
so that's where I'm taking my information from that. And I also was very involved in the National Geographic Genome Project.
Yeah.
Where they were having people send in their DNA sample. And it was very interesting. And my personal ancestry followed a very straight path from sub-Saharan Africa around the Western Mediterranean, spent some time in what we call the Holy Lands today, and then followed a straight path to Scandinavia. And my mitochondrial DNA is 91% Scandinavian. So
Oh, wow.
that proved true. Whereas Jet's family, I'm married to Jet's brother. Jet's family came up to the Middle East and then they went west into India and up through Kashmir and over I think it's the Ural Mountains, and ended up in Spain. So they took a much more circuitous route, but that's where I'm getting my information about the character of Blue Wing and how they travel following the herds. And it's also dealing with the idea of when people became farmers. Because if you remember the story of Cain grew grain, and he displeased God because he didn't give God the best grain. But Cain knew how to grow plants. And so he meets this wandering group of people and teaches them how to sow plants in the area before they leave, so that when they come back, there'll be food plants for them. So it does go into some amateur archaeological sleuthing there.
Very good. Now,
That sounds fascinating.
there is
Thank you.
so much more to Glenda than just her writing. She is an avid animal lover and has some really interesting hobbies. Many years ago, Chris and Glenda built a cat condominium onto their house. And I remember sleeping in their guest room, and Glenda came in and said, if you hear something in the closet, secret passageway from in the house to out to this condo that they built for the Catleys. Is that condo still there on your country home?
The condo is still there in our Bosque home, which is out in the country. And the issue is the cats live in Socorro right now for 2 reasons. Our elderly cat, Winston, was not going to get in the pet taxi again. He did not want to be carried back and forth. And I have the scars to prove it, because he really clawed me. And the other thing is that my husband, Chris, is an avid propagator of indigenous trees. And so he has many little trees in pots around our house, and little trees in pots and kitty cats are not a good combination.
Yeah.
But I imagine when summer comes around and those trees go back outside, the kitties will come back and they will be in the kitty condominium. But my husband and his friend Cesar built a bedroom size addition onto the back of our house, because my husband I love cats, but my husband is passionate about cats, and he wanted them to be able to go outside. And of course, having the litter box out there is wonderful. But he also put the passageway that they get to it through the guest room closet. And so we always have to warn guests like that. If you're sleeping in there and it sounds like there's a couple of big mice having a fight, it's just the kitties going outside.
Very good. You also have had ducks almost as long as I've known you. Are you still raising ducks? And
We are still raising ducks.
eggs? Mhm.
Yeah, we have 5 female ducks and 2 males, and they do not get together. We buy baby ducks about every 3 years, and we have many Chinese friends, and the Chinese friends love those duck eggs, as do many of our other friends. So we have, I have ducks because I grew up on a farm in South Dakota, and we got ducks almost every year from my grandparents for Easter. And so I grew up with ducks, and I find them great fun, and they're wonderful if you are a gardener because they eat bugs all winter long in the garden. And then they also provide fertilizer in the garden. So I don't have to use chemical fertilizers ever. And we will be getting more baby ducks as soon as it gets warm. I'm also a person who advocates strongly against buying baby ducks unless you know what you're doing. And I remember you bought your daughter 2 ducks for Easter, and she took very good care of them when she was a little girl.
Oh,
And
yes. They
not everybody does take good care of a baby duck.
yes,
And
it's cool.
yes,
That was
yes, they took over your pool. That's right. But my ducks this year quit laying, so it's very important to my egg business that I get some babies. And did you know your niece Sarah and her husband and daughter have gotten ducks now?
very
And
good.
so they're
Well,
eating duck eggs.
because of your love of the ducklings or ducklies. And how are your dogs doing, as you refer to the doglies?
Our dog leash, yeah, we have an affectation where we add LEY to the names of our animals. So the doglies, the ducklies, and the catlies. The doglies are okay. We lost our oldest dog, who was a wonderful Pembroke Welsh Corgi, but he lived 17 years. And then one Saturday morning, about 2 weeks ago, we saw him in his kennel pretty much unconscious, and he passed away a couple hours later. And we have the other 2 dogs we have are both rescues, but they're full-size German boxers. And they were very close to Topo, the Corgi, and they acted out. They misbehaved for about a week or 10 days of just fighting and being hard to get along with, but they have settled down again. And so we're down to 2 purebred boxers, both of whom were rescues. Other friends couldn't keep. So we're doing fine. And then we have Winston, who is an elderly rescue cat, and Rocky is a younger cat that is very social and loves everybody and meets everybody at the door. And she looks forward, I think, to going back to Bosque in a couple of months. So she likes that outdoor space.
Now, you've taken up lots of different hobbies also. I understand you completed your first stained glass work.
I completed my first large stained glass piece, which I don't have here with me, but I have this little one. I hope you can see it. If you can see it, it's a teddy bear with his ball, and it's about 7 by 7, I think, or 6 by 6. And this was the first piece I did where I felt like I was starting to get confident in what I did. I have other smaller pieces, but it's very fun to do. And you get a real pretty result when you're done. I'm being very fortunate to teach at a university or be retired from a university. I can take any art class I want to take. And many of my friends had taken stained glass and talked about how much fun it was. And as you probably know, Jet, I have a long history of quilting and sewing and making clothes for people.
Yeah.
And I find that stained glass is very much like quilting, except that you solder it together with lead when you're done instead of sewing it together. But the idea of picking colors and picking textures is very reminiscent of quilting. And I've just had a great time, and I made really good friends with the people in the class, and I hope they'll bring the class back sometime next year, because I don't want to invest in all of the equipment. Just one other funny thing. Chris had a couple of old soldering irons he said were from the 1940s. So I don't know if they belong to your dad. I'm not sure where they came from. I know your dad did a lot of civil engineering stuff, and he got them out and cleaned them up. And that's how I finished my big project, which was 10 by 14. And it's,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a pretty big picture. And I don't know if I would do anything that ambitious again in the near future. And one last thing that you wanted to see, I'll show you quick, is a special project I was doing. I don't know if you can see this.
Wow.
It's some embroidery that my grandmother started. And I remember when I was a kid, my grandmother broke both her wrists. And I have a feeling she fell, she had osteoporosis. And I have a feeling this was the last project and why she never finished it. But I finished it. My sister had it and she asked me to finish it. And so, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a dresser scarf that's a mirror pattern. And I finished it yesterday. And now my husband is going to put it in a frame for us.
Very good. And your grandmother actually started that, or?
My grandma did one side of it. She did, it's a little flat vase with a bunch of flowers coming up above it and out of it. And she had done the first side almost, she had almost had it finished. And I can tell it's probably from the 70s because the colors are orange and brown and gold. So that's a 70s color scheme. And my grandma passed away in 1986. So she's been gone for quite a while. But Patsy, my sister Patsy, found this with some of grandma's things that she had given her and asked me to finish it. So
very good. Well, there's so much to Glenda, and I just wanted to mention a little aside. Glenda mentioned that she was also a seamstress, and I remember many years ago, her husband Chris needed a suit. So Glenda made it for him. She made a pantsuit, which is even a 3-piece, but I mean, it was perfect. It was wonderful. And I've been a big member of Glenda's fan club ever since. She also is a collector of many different things, but I think about her cast iron cookery, and she never has a problem with low iron because she does cook in cast iron. Has a very vast collection. About how many pieces do you have now, Glenda?
Oh my gosh, I have not counted in a long time. I would probably say between the collectible pieces and the miniatures and the big pieces, probably about 200 pieces, I would guess.
I was
my
guessing
goodness.
100. So she knows everything about the antique cast iron pieces and the modern ones too. So thank you so much for joining us today, Glenda. You know I love you with all of my heart. And
Do we have time for a quick question?
Darling, love you so much. And I can't wait. Go ahead.
Dr. Bob would like to ask you a question.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, thank you, Glenda. That was really interesting. I wonder, do you self-publish or do you have a publisher for your books?
I originally went through a small online press called iUniverse, and I got increasingly dissatisfied with that one. And now I use what used to be called CreateSpace, but I use Kindle on Demand, or Kindle Unlimited. And I've been very pleased with them. I have had many friends have varying degrees of success with the publishing industry, and none of them were very happy with the result. And now that the publishing industry is getting smaller and smaller, I'm perfectly happy to put my books online. And Morning Song is now available both as an ebook and as a paperback. And I've been really happy. The nice thing about working with Amazon is that if you can do all the setup and everything yourself, it's free. And they keep a very small percentage of your sales. I get 70% of my sales, and Amazon keeps 30. Yeah. And one, I don't know if you're interested or if you have enough time, but one really interesting thing that happened with this little book, you never know when you put a book out, but this is a collection of short stories. And one day, a couple of years ago, I received a check in the mail. And the next year I received another check in the mail because a woman in France was using this as the reader for her English class.
Oh,
People were
wow.
learning English from these little stories. They're stories based on the paintings of Edward Hopper. So she could show them the image and then they'd read the story and then they'd chat about it in English in her French class. So
Very, very interesting.
Fantastic.
So Create Space is no more?
Create Space is no more. It's been absorbed by Kindle Unlimited, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I'd used that several years back to publish a little book and just wondered about it.
Yeah, were you happy with your experience?
Oh yeah, very.
I was too. And you have complete control. That's what I really like. Being an English teacher, I obviously don't have a lot of grammar errors and things like that, and you could go back and fix anything or change anything at any time. And I'm hoping to take my other books and get them out as ebooks as soon as my husband retires, because he's my computer guy.
Thanks again, Glenda. It's been wonderful seeing you this morning, and perhaps you can join us again sometime.
I would